Welcome to the Holistic Career Change Podcast. Spoiler alert, we don't discuss conventional, linear, boring career change here. This is the place where we talk about finding an aligned career path that feels like an extension of who you are, where you get paid for being yourself. Forget personality quizzes, soul-crushing scrolling on job sites, and breaking your brain trying to find your why. Join me and many other career changers who've changed their career holistically by first defining who they are at their core and then using this blueprint to design a fulfilling career or business. We use the mind-body-soul approach, and we take into consideration the complexity and multidimensionality of all that you are and want to represent in the world. This is where purpose-led careers are born and built. I'm your host, Vilma Oseita. Let's go. Hello, friends. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well, even though I must say when I tune into the energy, I feel like there has been a lot of changes happening lately for many of you, especially when it comes to the external circumstances. So I hope it's not been too dysregulating and it's not been too overwhelming. I want to quickly chat with you today about something that I've been discussing over on my Instagram. And it's what I've been noticing where many people who are transitioning are starting to question whether the path that they're considering or they have already transitioned into is actually aligned. Just because the transition period does not look the way that they had expected it to look. And yeah, sometimes we choose an aligned path and those initial steps don't unfold smoothly or quickly as we had hoped. So say you've decided to start a coaching practice. Okay, let's just use it as an example. And maybe you even finally mustered the courage to leave your evil corporate job to start your dream business, and you may be over the moon. Yes, you're probably afraid, but you're also excited. You just know it in your bones that this work is your calling and it's everything you've been craving for, and it matches your blueprint, the lifestyle that you want, and the impact that you want to create. You could practically taste the freedom and fulfillment of getting to use your unique gifts to help others. This literally feels like a path of bliss for you, almost too good to be true. That's how excited you are. But then when you attempt to start transitioning into it and building the structure of your business, the reality of it hits you like a ton of bricks. And that happens a lot, especially if you're moving into your own business, into entrepreneurship. Maybe you're signing much fewer coaching clients than you had, confidently projected. Maybe the tech issues in setting up your website or your social media account feel really daunting and never ending. Maybe you're trying to work out all the legal requirements and that feels confusing and intimidating. Perhaps you've been feeling lots of resistance to market yourself because, hey, you just want to help people. You don't want to be a marketing and sales expert. And then when you're transitioning, you realize you kind of need to become. So all of it starts to mount up and feel heavy and destabilizing. And having to deal with so many new responsibilities is really taking a toll on you, and you're starting to notice that your confidence took a major hit because you're struggling to get things off the ground smoothly the way you might have expected, right? And then inevitably you begin questioning if you've made a huge mistake, whether you have made the wrong choice. You're starting replaying probably all the doubtful remarks and concerned remarks you've heard from your family, friends around this choice. So you start dancing with the gremlins, which is something I always tell you not to do. Okay, don't engage with the gremlins. No eye contact, because if you start engaging with them, they take over. And maybe you start believing that, maybe you just don't have what it takes. And maybe this career shift wasn't actually the right alignment for you after all. And that maybe you should look for something else. You should look for something different, or God forbid, maybe even go back to the old career, right? So again, it doesn't have to be a coaching practice. It could be absolutely anything else. I see that a lot. And by the way, a big disclaimer, if you have left your job and you're struggling financially, you absolutely should leverage your skill set and get a job in the old industry, okay? We're not bashing that. It's totally legit and very respectful. However, do it temporarily. You need to do whatever it takes to protect your finances and protect your family, whatever it takes. So I'm not romanticizing you quitting your job and following your dreams no matter what. I think I've said that many times on this podcast, but I feel like I really need to make sure that my words are not taken literally. Okay, but having said that, I want to offer you maybe a different perspective of what actually might be happening, because I have a hunch that many of you who do listen to my podcast are on the right direction. But there are some other things that we may need to unpack and that require a little bit of your attention. And I think the issue might not be the misaligned direction, but how you've been walking the path and the conscious and unconscious expectations that you might have set for how it should unfold. The expectations always get in the way. Many of you want this new direction to instantly validate you. And if you feel called out, there's probably some truth for you there. You want it to validate you ASAP. That's why so many of you are impatient and urgent and frustrated. So you want validation versus understanding that first, before the validation comes, we need to be pouring in love, time, and attention into it so it could grow and become a new solid path that then can single-handedly offer all the validation that you need. So my question is, do you want instant validation or do you want a successful new business or successful new career? Because no one owes you anything. No one owes us validation. It's not anyone else's job to validate or help you believe that this path is going to unfold how you want it to unfold. It's your responsibility to cultivate the belief that is going to happen and that you're going to figure out no matter what. That's part of your job. And I know it may seem like, again, like I'm calling some of you out, but trust me, at the beginning stages, I was there too. I'm calling my past self out. Okay. I wanted to be successful in a month. I was getting frustrated that I had to learn all these new skills. And I feel like entitled for people to work with me. But here's the thing. Soul-led, purpose-led, aligned careers, they will still require effort and patience before we can see the results. Just because it's aligned, it doesn't mean that the Red Sea will part for us and all of it will magically come together without us lifting our little finger. I always say this, yes, 100% you will feel much more supported than in any previous endeavor that you've ever had in your life. You will feel supported, you will feel more peaceful, you will feel more lit up. But please don't confuse the preparation, the trial and tribulation on your path, that by the way, all of this is there to serve you and teach you, and prepare for this work. Don't confuse that with misalignment. Okay, like I wrote on Instagram, it's like, please don't throw the baby with the bathwater. Let's discern what's actually happening. These hiccups you may be getting, frustrated about are the price that you pay for having an aligned, meaningful career that provides you with sustainable income. I said this all the time. The reason why so few people on this planet have aligned careers is because they don't want to feel uncomfortable the way that you are feeling right now. And they don't want to go through growth pains, right? And just like any other career or business, this aligned track, will also need to be built and invested in with time, with effort, and sometimes with money. Why would it be any different? Why do we have this idea that hey, universe, now I decided that I'm going to do this, now do all the work for me? That's not how this earth school works. So if you're going through this, you probably know already how it's manifesting for you. So you may feel periods of flow and enjoyment in your work, but then before you know it, say if you post something and maybe don't get enough likes, the self-doubt, the contraction creep in, and that becomes a pretty regular practice where you're battling, where you're living in between, what the F am I doing here? Am I crazy to think that this could work? With, yes, this is totally it, right? So you live in this duality. Or maybe parts of you really know that the path does align with your blueprint, but you question it on those days where the progress feels rocky. We're like, oh, no. Or maybe deep down, you are certain it's the right direction, but when others share their doubts, you begin to question it too. So if you're recognizing yourself in this, the first thing that I love for you to do is really inspect the conscious and mostly unconscious expectations that you brought into the process, that perhaps it will unfold much quicker or differently. So when it doesn't happen on your timeline, you get disappointed and you get doubtful. So if you're resonating with this or recognizing yourself in this, I have some advice. By the way, also, if you're someone who hasn't started your transition yet and you're listening to this podcast, please don't tune out. Stick around, because I think it could be useful for you to hear this so you know what may come up when you transition, so you're equipped and you can recognize. Because I feel like a lot of the times when we understand the context, that's why I feel like it's so helpful sometimes to be in containers where other people are doing the same thing, whether like losing weight or like in my case, changing career, because you have someone who tells you like, yeah, that is the stage where this happens. You're not crazy. Nothing has gone wrong, right? So when we know the context, then we know that this is part of the process. We freak out less and we surrender and lean into the process more. So we let the universe help us, let the universe support us, right? Okay. So firstly, what I'll say, which is quite common, is checking whether your approach towards transition needs to change. What I'm trying to say here is that what and why is not the problem. Your direction is probably right. You don't need to question it. Don't even go there, okay? But what might need to be tweaked is how you've been going about it. And that's very different, because a lot of you kind of put it all into one pot, right? And start questioning it, and it gets convoluted. It's like, let's separate things. The direction is aligned, but how you're going about it, this is what we may need to inspect. For example, perhaps you're approaching this new aligned path using old rules. If you were in corporate, you would use old corporate rules of engagement, right? Maybe you build your business and you end up like rigidly planning your calendar or working the same hours you did in 9 to 5 without questioning whether the schedule aligns with your peak energy times throughout the day. As simple as that. Are you a morning person or an evening person? Yes, we can be both. However, when do you peak in your day? When are you the sharpest, right? And whether you work better, maybe in a more flow intuitive way, which you never even got to explore when you were in rigid settings. Does it match your chronotype, the way that you're working? If not, review. There's no need to fight against your natural ebbs and flows within a day, right? I always talk about this. I'm a morning person. I'm recording this episode at 7 a.m. and I've been up for 2 hours. This is my peak time. Talk to me in the afternoon after I had my lunch. I'm just like in an alternate universe. I'm not, sometimes, because obviously English is not my first language. And that's why I coach people in the afternoon as well. It really aligns with me because I'm more grounded, more open, more intuitive in the evening. In my first half of the day, I'm more in my masculine getting done energy. That's why I complete things like this in the morning, right? But that was very much the case for me when I started unknowingly, but at the beginning, I was not doing that. I was showing up for my practice as if I was in my 9 to 5. I was leading with my conditioned self, not my authentic self, not my authentic needs. I was trying to, again, like what the example that I just gave, I was like planning every single step very rigidly rather than listening to my intuition. And then I was wondering, why is it so hard to stick to my plan? Why do I have so much resistance? It's because I was using half of me, maybe 1/3 of me, my limited brain, not letting the soul in that has so much more wisdom and so much more foresight, right? I was operating with a small percentage of my actual capability. And I love what neuropsychologist Dr. Mario Martinez says. He has very interesting work in general, but like he says, we need both structure and spaciousness. And I had structure, but no spaciousness for things to organically unfold. That's why I was struggling. And I was like, why is it not working? I thought I would be so happy to work on my schedule, but something is off. Another aspect you want to look at is whether you had, again, unconsciously set a timeline that you want things to unfold in, like a month. We have expectations that aligned path will be quick and easy just because it feels right in our soul. So we're like, if it feels so right, well, it must just all come together really quickly. So you want to pause and inspect again whose expectations these are. Are they even your expectations? Are they projected by your partner? We have that a lot. When the masculine comes into this process and they'd be like, are you earning money yet? Have you sold anything? After like 2 days of you working. Like, what's your business plan? We're like, I don't have one. I don't need it. They're like, how are we going to do this? Right? Like, we start panicking because this is not their aligned path. They can't understand it. Maybe you pick those expectations up from the, those relentless ads and that the algorithm has been serving you of all the things you should be doing or should be doing better. We're bombarded. Oh my goodness, algorithm is so lethal sometimes, right? It really, really adds to our imposter syndrome. Like, really, this is a sincere invitation. Like, pause and you could take a piece of paper or do it on your phone and free write. How do you still expect your new path to unfold? Write it all, even the most stupidest things, even like the most random things that you expect to happen, right? Because a lot of it right now is unexplored in your head. You don't even know that you live with these expectations. And that's why you're getting frustrated and short-tempered and urgent and confused. You're like wasting so much of your precious life force energy on this versus directing that energy to creativity, working on this path. You are using it on that internal like battle. It's like, it should be different, should be quicker, should be whatever, right? So write all of those expectations out one by one and then review them. Do they serve you? Because the rule is very simple here. If it doesn't feel good in your body when you read it, discard it and do it your way. Okay. And again, I'll give you a personal example. When I started and worked with a business coach, one of the general advice passed on around then, at least, was like to do market research and what other people in your niche do to understand where you stand. And that felt so off to me. And I didn't know why at first. I was just like, oh, that feels icky, right? Because I was starting out and I would feel so intimidated by people who've been doing this for a long time. And I'd get demotivated then, I'd get deflated. I'd start questioning myself. Can I really do this? This looks like so much work. They're like, how did they get here? What's the story? I would get just like distracted, right? And also be afraid I'd accidentally like steal their concept just by reading them. Sometimes you read something and you forget that you read it and you think you came up with that. Like, that happens to me all the time. It just felt icky. So you know what? In the end, I just refused to do that exercise. I was like, no, I'm not going to look at anyone else. I'm not going to look at anyone else. And I unfollowed every single person who felt triggering to me. And not because I don't like them or don't respect them. A lot of them are amazing professionals. I love their work. I'm in love with what they do. It's nothing to do with them. It was all about my inner content and me trying to protect my peace and safety as I was starting out. Do we need to work on those triggers? Yes, but time and place. We need to recognize when we have resources to work on those triggers. And if you're starting out and you're like all shaky and wobbly, you probably don't want to expose yourself to triggers all day, every day. It was so funny. I had a coffee with one of my girlfriends. She's actually my ex-colleague. We worked in management consulting together years ago. And she wanted to tag me in a story on Instagram. And she was like, oh, weird. I can't find like your account on Instagram. I was like, oh, that's strange. Like, well, surely here's the account. It's not like a private account. And then I found, like, I was kind of checking as well. And I found that I had blocked her years ago. Because I was blocking everyone who I thought could influence me. And, she was such a good sport about it. And we laughed so much about it. She was like, Vilma, you're such a bitch. I'm like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. When you are starting something new, it feels so vulnerable and you kind of feel naked and you become so sensitive to other people's comments and opinions. And even if they don't say anything, you project what you think they will say or think. So I simply blocked pretty much everyone. As I was gaining confidence and getting used to my new identity, eventually, I have blocked people, but like clearly not everyone. So my question is, are you protecting your energy and your safety? Are you still susceptible to other people's projections on your timeline and outcome of this new path? Because we really want to make sure that we're not letting that in. That's not our content. These are not our fears. These are not our timelines. right? And we also need to be realistic about the fact that, again, even if it's aligned and you are, not just bringing your transferable skills, but your natural abilities as well. That's why I always say aligned work feels more like getting paid for being yourself than actual work. And it's true. And a lot of people who transitioned will confirm that. However, you still need to learn new skills. I see this often with, like, say, for instance, new coaches, like continuing with my example, who are getting trained, right? Like the work utterly resonates with their spirit, and then doubt sets in during those initial stages of, say, client acquisition. It's not the service itself that's a problem, though. It's learning how to sell the service authentically. And it's not something you're born with. It's a skill that we need to earn through trial and error, just selling and talking about it many times. I don't even call like this selling. I call it more like informing people about your service. It's through sometimes sheer quantity of attempts we learn how to communicate authentically, because we say something and then afterwards we check in with our body and we're like, oh, that didn't feel good. What was off? Oh, the way I said that didn't feel good. So next time you write, you're like, or talk to someone who's interested, you're like, oh no, I do this and that. And then you check in and you're like, oh yeah, that felt better. That not farts. That part still feels icky. So what is in that part that I need to change that feels like more aligned with who I am and how I want to present myself? It's trial and error. We're so afraid of that. Just experiment and try until you find the way. And through those hours, just like anything else in life, you will learn how to inform people about your service authentically, right? So maybe you will be asked to learn. Maybe you will be asked to sell and express yourself authentically, which you never quite had to do before, because it's building new skills. It's new. It's not scary and nothing has gone wrong. It's your training. Your purpose is going to stretch you and make you feel uncomfortable. Please don't confuse it for misalignment. But you know what? It's funny. Even that uncomfortable will feel much more comfortable than the previous misalignment you felt in old jobs. Okay, so even that uncomfortable has some comfort within it. So I really hope that you can all find magic in the messy middle of blossoming into your aligned paths and into your calling. And I hope that me rambling here perhaps planted some seeds where you will want to go take that away and inspect what's actually happening, so you don't discard and start doubting something that could be very much your path just because getting there doesn't feel ecstatic. Okay. And finally, I will say this. Just check in and really, really realign and reconfirm whether you really want this, because you need to want this. If this truly what you think, where you want to be, and you believe that this could be your future, an aligned path is alluring. It's sexy. It's inviting. And honestly, I myself would choose it all day, every day. And I will go through all the dark nights of the souls and ego deaths and all of the dramatic change that I went through several times again, so I would get to lead this life that I'm leading now, because of how meaningful it feels. But it doesn't mean it's easy. It's character building, that's for sure. Because an aligned path is not just your vocation. It's a path of your personal and spiritual growth that never stops. Are you willing to work for it? Are you willing to commit to it? Be so brutally honest with yourself. And some of you may actually say, no, it's too hard. And you know what? No shame at all. Not all of us need to do aligned work. Some of us came here on a freaking holiday. We're like, hey, this is a beautiful planet. I've had many lifetimes of persecution, and I'm tired. I just want to live an easy life. And you know what? Great. Just be honest with yourself, right? That is so legit too. Many people, actually majority of people, do lead that life where they're like, hey, a job is just a job. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. And I'm going to spend the rest of my time with the money that I earn, traveling, eating amazing food, having sex, and just exploring this plane, right? So let's make sure that our goals and needs are authentic to us. Honesty, radical honesty, right? And be wise in choosing your regrets. Because at the end of the day, what's life is about, I think, is choosing your flavor of regrets. Because you can't have it all. We will always have regrets. So what regrets are you willing to live with? That's the question I'm going to leave you with. Very dramatic ending. Have a good week, everyone. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you resonate with this content, please subscribe and leave a little review to put a smile on my face. And if you'd like to take this work further and have my one-on-one support in switching to an aligned career path using my holistic career change method, make sure you head over to the show notes and book your free consultation call. I can't wait to meet you. Have a nice day.